Matt, we have to say here. I mean, this is a good day to talk about a lot of sports going on, and then we got the NBA draft going on, and a lot more, man.
And also, on top of you mentioning the NBA, we have a new NBA champion and the first team to reach 18 NBA titles, and that would be the Boston Celtics.
One ahead of my Los Angeles Lakers, but we're going to talk about the Lakers on the NBA segment here, but we'll start with that. But the Boston Celtics won championship number 18 and beating the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. Jaylen Brown was the NBA Finals MVP. I thought it was Jason Tatum because Jason Tatum had a very good NBA Finals. And as for the Mavericks, even though they lost, you know they're on the rise with Kyrie and Luka.
And you want to know the thing is, though, I think, and you can say this with pretty much every series that Boston played in this postseason, they overmatched every one of their opponents. I mean, I mentioned before they played Miami without Jimmy Butler. They played the Knicks. They played the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton. They played, oh my god, I forget who they played in the second round. But they played a lot of teams that didn't have their top player. They played the Cavs without Donovan Mitchell, and this was the first series where the Boston Celtics were playing a fully healthy team. But I do gotta say, Luka Doncic, I think, earned my respect more than anybody because for a man who's younger than 25 years old, this man can play. And I love the fact that even though Kyrie Irving did not win his second NBA title, he has changed as a person. He's changed as a player, and I'm all for that. But the Boston Celtics deserve it. They dominated this entire postseason, and they won 80 games this year. I mean, you can't really complain with the result.
Yes, you can't really complain about that result because, the Boston Celtics they're a team that really earned it. And I think the Boston Celtics could be an NBA dynasty once again.
But see, here's the problem, though. Over the last few years, we've said, no, this team can repeat. Oh, this team can repeat. Oh, this team can repeat. We've said it about the Lakers after they won the title in the bubble in 2020. We said this about the Bucks after they won the championship in 21. Then the Warriors the year before. Then the Nuggets the year after that, and now the Boston Celtics. But I think the difference here is that the Boston Celtics have a very sharp core. I mean, we talk about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but you got to look at their contributing players. They got Derek White. They got Hauser. They got Kristaps Porzingis. They have a lot of really good veteran and young players on that team that make it so unique and so hard to stop. And I think that even though, the Eastern Conference is the best conference in the NBA, probably better than the West just because of how well-rounded it is, Boston is the best team in that conference. And like I said, they won 80 games this year. But the Boston Celtics, they can repeat. I think they just really need to put one more player over the top. And then I think you've got a back-to-back title. But you got to remember, no team has won a back-to-back championship since the 2017-2018 Golden State Warriors. So it's going to be hard.
Yes, I think repeating is hard, but, Boston, I think, is still a top-tier team in the East. And in the West, you're talking about Denver, Minnesota, OKC. Dallas, I think, is going to be on the rise, too.
Yeah, Dallas, like I said, they had a phenomenal postseason run. And it's unfortunate that, it had to end this way. I mean, it looked like they were rejuvenated after Game 4 when they beat the Boston Celtics by 30. But obviously, once Boston got home, you knew they weren't going to be stopped. But like I said, Luka's only going to get better as he matures. Kyrie Irving's only going to keep getting better as a person the longer he stays in Dallas. I feel like he found his home finally outside of Cleveland. And I think Dallas just needs a third contributor. I mean, they really didn't have a lot of help outside of Kyrie and Luka throughout the NBA Finals. And really, it was just those two carrying them throughout the entire postseason. I feel like Luka, like I said, he's the franchise guy. And eventually, he's going to get that big extension that he deserves. And I feel like Kyrie's due a contract too. But I think the Mavericks need to land one more big name. And I think Mark Cuban can make that happen.
Mark Cuban is not afraid of spending big bucks. And I know that. And his ownership group has done a great job this year with this roster. Jason Kidd has done a great job, too, as the head coach.
Yeah, Jason Kidd is a good factor. NBA Hall of Famer, and he's been coaching for quite a long time. But the way he's molded this Mavericks team, you got to give him a pat on the back because this is a Mavericks squad that is mixed. They have two good players, and that's it. But outside of that, they really have done a good job negotiating contracts. They've done a good job getting players ready for games. He's done a good job keeping Luka in check because one of the problems with Luka Doncic over the years is that his temper has gotten in the way. But Luka's been very professional throughout the postseason. And like I said, it's unfortunate that they didn't get it done, but I feel like better days are ahead.
Yes, and then you talk about the NBA draft coming up. The Atlanta Hawks have the number 1 pick. I mean, are you excited? Which NBA prospect are you excited to see? Are you excited to see Zach Edey in there?
Oh, Zach Edey. Well, Big Ten player. But what it is with Zach Edey, he's big and he can guard you inside, but his shot outside the skyhook, he doesn't have a shot outside the skyhook. But I think Zach Edey is probably the most intimidating player in this draft. But UConn does have a couple players coming into the draft as well that could be really good.
And, Dan Hurley is not going to coach the Lakers, and, he's staying at UConn. And I thought that's a good choice for Dan Hurley.
Yep. And I think the reason why, and I know we talked about this in private, but I will spill the beans outside of this. I mentioned that Dan Hurley's contract offer by the Lakers was not good enough. You're talking 6 years, $70 million for a guy who won back-to-back national championships and turned a program around. I think Dan Hurley's worth $100 million, and I'm shocked the Lakers didn't go to that extent for a contract offer that they said was well worth it. But Dan Hurley, like I said, UConn's the favorite to three-peat this year, or next year rather, and I don't really see any other team that's capable of beating UConn. Unless Duke does something drastic, or if the Houston Cougars do something drastic, or if they recruit well. But I think it's UConn alone this upcoming season.
UConn with Dan Hurley is just something. I think Dan Hurley wants to coach at that place for the rest of his career.
Yeah, and the thing is too, UConn will be stupid to let him go. You want to know why they would be stupid to let him go? Because no team had won a back-to-back national championship in basketball since 2006-2007. And UConn, think of it this way, Lo. UConn has two phenomenal coaches in basketball. You got Gino Auriemma for the women, and you got Dan Hurley for the men. And UConn specializes in winning championships. And Dan Hurley and Gino have done just that. And Dan Hurley, like I said, he's only begun to carve out his legacy in college basketball. And I think the last thing he wants is to leave to start new.
Yeah, it's like Calipari starting new in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. But the difference between this is that, we've seen college coaches jump to the NBA, and they haven't had a lot of success. And I think Rick Pitino is probably the biggest surprise of them all, because Rick Pitino is a former college national champion. But I don't think Dan Hurley wanted to fall in line with the rest of those college flops that turned into flops in the NBA. And like I said, Dan Hurley's doing the smart thing. If I were the Lakers, I'd be kicking myself saying, wow, we didn't do enough to land Dan Hurley. We look really stupid.
That's a bad look for the Lakers, but we also have to talk about some free agents here. Klay Thompson is open to external options in free agency. My prediction on Klay Thompson and what he does, I think he stays with the Warriors if the Warriors can get him to sign for less money.
Yeah, I can't see Klay Thompson going anywhere else. The Warriors, even though they aren't as good as they were a couple of years ago, they're still a really solid foundation team. I think, if anything, Klay Thompson will be willing to take less money, like you said, but they would also have to make room to dump maybe a couple players. Like maybe I've heard Draymond Green's in jeopardy of leaving Golden State just because of his attitude, but we'll have to see what happens there.
Draymond Green should stay there because, I think Draymond Green is a great asset to this team, but he can also be a head case too.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying, do you think Steve Kerr and Steph Curry want to deal with this much longer? I mean, when you talk about on-the-court problems, this was one of the worst years Draymond Green has had in his career. And I don't think Steph Curry and Steve Kerr want to tolerate that. And if they do bring him back, Draymond Green needs to see somebody off the court because this is getting out of hand.
Yes, because he's always flopping players. He's also being charged with technical fouls and doing stupidity on the court with his actions.
Yeah, like I said, if the Warriors want to keep him, he needs to do something for himself.
Yes, and then we also have to talk about Joe Mazzulla. I feel like Joe Mazzulla taking over the Celtics as the head coach due to the Ime Udoka situation. I really think he's solidified himself as the right person to lead the Boston Celtics.
And it's amazing because Ime Udoka took the Boston Celtics to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago. But then obviously the off the court scandals happened and he was ousted out of Boston. But you know what? Good for Joe Mazzulla to really step up to the plate and make this Boston Celtics team a force to be reckoned with in the future. And you know what? I know he's fairly new into his tenure, but I wouldn't be surprised if an extension is on the horizon.
He should get an extension. He's done a great job with the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, here now. Look, we got to talk about Donovan Mitchell next. I mean, he's also a trade candidate. Do you think he stays with the Cleveland Cavaliers?
No. And the reason why is because Donovan Mitchell is at the point in his career where he wants to chase a championship. And if you think you're going to get that in Cleveland, that's not going to happen. The Cavaliers have a couple good pieces. I know they didn't have Jared Allen throughout the Boston Celtics series, but you got Darius Garland as well. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers, their biggest problem is they don't have a star outside of Donovan Mitchell. And I think Mitchell is at the point where he wants to win a title outside of a cast of characters that aren't going to support him. If he does end up being traded, I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere in the Western Conference. I think he stays there. I think he goes back to the Western Conference where he really made a name for himself. What team? I'm trying to think. Maybe the Dallas Mavericks, maybe the Lakers, maybe a couple. There's a couple teams out there in the West that could definitely use him, but I think the Eastern Conference, I don't think he's going to thrive as long as Boston stands atop.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But anyways, now we're going to talk about some early favorites to win the NBA title. Do you think Boston will repeat, or do you think Denver will do it again?
A part of me says the Denver Nuggets are going to exact revenge on the Boston Celtics. I feel like the Boston Celtics were the best team in the NBA all year this year, and that's good. But that's a rare instance where the number one team in the NBA wins the title. The Denver Nuggets lost to a Minnesota team that was well below their standard. And I think Nikola Jokic is going to come back next year, and he's going to absolutely dominate. And the Denver Nuggets are a good team. We've said that in the past. They won the NBA title the year before the Boston Celtics. But I feel like Denver is just equipped to win every other year.
I definitely couldn't agree more. And you also have to talk about the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama. They're going to be on the rise at some point.
And you know what? I wouldn't be shocked if this team makes the play-in tournament. I feel like they're a play-in team next year if they can play their cards right in free agency and in the draft. I feel like Greg Popovich, while his career is starting to come to its end, I think he wants to try and win one more before he calls it a career. But I think if the Spurs want to get to where they want to be, they need to make a splash. And it's going to be hard. But there are going to be a lot of enticing free agents out there that you can land. And maybe they shock the world and get Klay Thompson to complement Victor Wembanyama. Because the Spurs exactly are not there yet outside of Victor. They really don't have too many players.
What about making a trade for Trae Young?
I mean, that would be exciting too. I mean, Trae Young coming to San Antonio, that would be a massive splash. Just because Trae Young, I think, is kind of done with the hype with the Hawks. I think the Hawks have kind of evaporated. So I think maybe getting Trae Young will be an interesting move. So like I said, Greg Popovich's that Spurs program, they're really good and they're on the rise. So maybe they could make some moves and get Victor Wembanyama some help.
Now we'll talk some baseball here. I tell you, it's been a brutal weekend for the Dodgers, losing Mookie Betts and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. But the Dodgers yesterday showed that they can win games without Mookie Betts and Yoshinobu Yamamoto with a dominant win over the Rockies. And I know that the end of June is very easy for them because not only they have to play Colorado for 4, they got to go back home to play the Angels. Then they got to go to Chicago to play the lowly White Sox before playing the Giants to conclude June. So and then Mookie Betts is out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken hand. So it could potentially have him back between early to mid-August.
So, and ideally, that's not the worst case scenario. You and I were talking, we said originally that Mookie could be out 2 to 3 months. So we're talking like most of the rest of the regular season. Thankfully for the Dodgers, they're going to get him early to mid-August, which is actually pretty good. And I'm looking at the Dodgers schedule right now. You talked about their June schedule being so easy for the rest of the month. Look at their July schedule. They start off with the Diamondbacks, and then from there, they got a lot of division opponents. And the beautiful thing with the Dodgers is they might lose a little bit of ground in the division, but they'll still win the division because look at this the NL West. The Dodgers 45-39, the Giants 36-37, the Padres 37-39, the Diamondbacks 35-37, and the Colorado Rockies 25-47. Like, that's a terrible division, but the Dodgers are cruising. My main concern with the Dodgers right now is that you might not be in second place by the time Mookie Betts comes back, because like I mentioned before, the Brewers are catching up because the week was really hard for the Dodgers. They lost the series to the Texas Rangers. They didn't do well they did decent against the Kansas City Royals, but there were a couple of series that they kind of left on the table that they should have taken advantage of. But if I'm a Dodgers fan, I would be blessed that's only 6 to 8 weeks for Mookie Betts. As far as Yoshinobu Yamamoto goes, it's a 15-day IL. He'll be back. He might miss a couple starts, but I wouldn't be horrified about that.
Yeah, probably he should be back after the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think that, the Dodgers, I think, will be fine either way. They have Walker Buehler on the mound today for the Dodgers, and, he has got off to a slow start, but I think this is the start where I think he starts to pick up his game just a bit.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, like you said, you're playing the Rockies this week. I mean, come on, guys. Come on. I mean, you're playing the Rockies. So, listen, you can build your confidence against low-light teams like this. So, if the Dodgers want to put their foot on the gas pedal, these are the teams that you have to not only win, but you got to blow them out of the water, too.
And they did so in the first game of the series. We'll see how that happens tonight. But anyways, here the New York Yankees suffered a big blow last night. I mean, Anthony Rizzo is out 4 to 6 weeks due to a broken arm. Do you think this is a big deal for you, Matt?
Not as big a deal as people think. And I think the reason why is because you've seen DJ LeMahieu take over first base in recent games. I know Anthony Rizzo took a couple games off in the Royals series just because he wanted to get his confidence back, and here he is again on the IL. And I talked to a couple Yankee fans. They said the same thing. DJ's good at first base. You can put Oswaldo Cabrera at third if that's how you want to do it. But Rizzo hasn't been performing too great. He's barely batting over 220, and he hasn't really picked up his game so far this year. So, I mean, hopefully Rizzo's healthy. You hate to see anybody get hurt, but as far as Anthony Rizzo is concerned, maybe this is a blessing in disguise for the Yankees.
Well, I mean, you got a first base prospect that's coming up. Ken Rosenthal was just saying that I kind of forgot his name until you can tell me who it is. He might be the first baseman of the future for the New York Yankees.
First baseman prospect for the Yankees, huh?
Yes.
All right, so the Yankees' first baseman prospect you're talking about is Ben Rice. Ben Rice has been performing really well in AAA and AA. They're going to call him up to play first base. And this is in the wake of the Anthony Rizzo move. So here's Ben Rice's stats. He's hit 275, a 925 OPS, 15 homers at the AA level. 11 games since being promoted to AAA. He's batting .333 and a .619 slugging. That's all really good. I mean, that's an option for them. Rizzo, like I said, he's only batting .223 in 69 games this year with a .630 OPS. I mean, maybe Ben Rice can provide a little bit of a spark. I mean, one of the things the Yankees have done really well is they've used their farm system well to the point where you have coverage. But like I said, if you want to slowly migrate the kid into you playing first base, that's fine. But as far as Rizzo's concerned, maybe his days as a Yankee are numbered because unfortunately he's evaporated. I can see his confidence going down, and I don't know how long he's gonna be a starter for the Yankees.
And then a guy that you and I are very excited about is Jason Dominguez. I mean, he's on the AAA injured list, but I really think that when he comes back, I feel like that Jason Dominguez could be Rookie of the Year next year, and I could see him in the lineup with Soto and Judge.
Yes. As much as I appreciate Alex Verdugo, I think Alex Verdugo is a guy that you want to come off the bench. Or maybe play DH, because if you look at the way Giancarlo Stanton's been playing, he's been playing okay. He hasn't really blown me away. I mean, I know the weight loss was supposed to really help him out, but he's really been the same old Stanton. But I like Jason Dominguez. I've always been a fan of his. He was doing really well before he got hurt and sent back down to AAA. Soto's been doing everything he could. Judge has been doing everything he could. And I think Dominguez getting younger a little bit in the outfield, I think, has been good. Although I will say, Alex Verdugo has been playing his part so far with this Yankee team, and it's good to see him step up against the Red Sox a little bit.
Yeah, he wanted revenge on his former team here, and then you talk about and then some good news from the Yankees front. I mean, tomorrow Garrett Cole returns, and what is that going to do for the New York Yankees to get Garrett Cole back? Because, Garrett Cole is coming back at the right situation. The Yankees are already 15-24 without him, and you're getting a guy that won the Cy Young last year, and I feel like he's going to start winning you some ball games.
And you know what the best thing about this is, Loro? The best thing about this is the fact that this was a natural progression back into the rotation, because if you followed Garrett Cole's recovery, he's been recovering so well, the Yankees didn't rush him back. So if you looked at his last start in AAA, 4 1/3 innings, 70 pitches, 10 strikeouts, 2 hits allowed, no runs. That's amazing in AAA. Now, Garrett Cole has been progressing really well. He's back to striking out batters again. I mean, how he fares against the Orioles, that's going to be one interesting story, because the Orioles have been deadly to opposing pitchers so far this season. But I can slowly see the Yankees' rotation and it was pretty apparent in the Boston series. The Yankee rotation kind of fell off a little bit. I mean, Stroman didn't have a great start on Sunday. Rodon did not have a good start on Saturday. Luis Gil barely got through 5 innings on Friday. And then Nestor Cortez went through 7 and allowed 2 runs on Thursday. But still, you want your rotation to have some fire in their stomach. And Garrett Cole is the guy that can provide that. So for those of you who are wondering what the rotation is going to look like for this Baltimore series, it's going to be Nestor Cortez on the mound tonight, Garrett Cole on the mound tomorrow, and then Luis Gil on Thursday.
Luis Gil, I think, has been solid. I mean, the dude is going to be a top-notch starter for the Yankees in the future, and I think, I think that this is a kid that's going to that really stepped up when he had to.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and nothing was more apparent than in the Boston series when he started on Friday. Like I said, Friday wasn't Luis Gil's best outing, but he did go 5 innings and did get the win because he got the decision. And Aaron Boone had confidence in him. So it was good to see that even the manager has trust in your stuff, even when it's not going fantastic. But Luis Gil, like we mentioned before, he's probably going to win the Cy Young if he keeps up his pace right now for the American League. The National League is a different story. I think Ranger Suarez has been phenomenal. But as far as American League terms, Luis Gil is going to win that Cy Young unless Seth Lugo or Tanner Houck pass him by.
Tanner Houck, I think, has been a good pitcher for the Red Sox. But Brian Bale has potential, but he still has some work to do.
And the problem with Brian Bale is the fact that he also doesn't have the run support that he gets. I mean, every Brian Bale start, his ERA is just under 4 just because the run support that he has is non-existent. Like you said, I mean, the Boston Red Sox stepped up against the Yankees thanks to Rafael Devers. But other than that, I mean, Boston is hovering above 500 barely. I mean, they are contending for a playoff spot with Minnesota only 3 games in front. And that American League is really tough, but I think that Boston has a chance to make some moves. I think they may have to make a couple moves at the deadline, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But, now we talk about the Rickwood series, a tribute to the Negro Leagues. The Giants are taking on the Cardinals. I mean, this is good that they're doing baseball at Rickwood Field, which is paying tribute to the Negro Leagues. And, the Negro Leagues were a league whereas, people learn about this past stuff.
And it's appropriate that they're doing this because this was also the year that they added the Negro League stats to Major League Baseball's record books. So it's appropriate that they're having this kind of game this year. And it should be interesting to see the way the field looks. If anything, this is kind of similar to the Field of Dreams game that now Major League Baseball has every year, except this is a different circumstance. It's more of a historical type of game with the Redwood series, with the Rickwood series. I think this is going to be something that Major League Baseball is going to be proud of to have for future years.
They should have this because, the Negro Leagues are a trip to the past in baseball because, people visit the Negro League Museum in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I want to see the Negro League Museum in Kansas City. I want to learn about that because it's a really good historical place in baseball.
It is. And if you remember, the Negro Leagues were also how Jackie Robinson got his start in Major League Baseball. And that's how the color barrier was broken. So it's kind of refreshing to see how the field looks and how it's going to be presented on TV and the stuff they talk about during the broadcast. I'm assuming Joe Davis is going to have the call.
He will be with John Smoltz.
He will be with John Smoltz. So the presentation is going to be everything. And like I said, they do the Field of Dreams game really well every year. So, but I think there's going to be a special nuance to this kind of presentation.
Forgot to mention this on the NBA subject here. I forgot to ask you this. Do you think J.J. Redick is a foregone conclusion that he is going to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers?
All right, since this is a really quick, since it's going to be a really quick topic, yes. If you've seen what LeBron James has said on J.J. Redick's podcast, they were talking about basketball when Darvin Ham was on the hot seat. So I think that it kind of makes sense that the foundation was already planted in LA for J.J. Redick to be there. And I think that's how it's going to go.
And then Jeff Van Gundy, he is back in the NBA, not as a head coach. He's a lead assistant coach under Tyronn Lue for the Clippers.
And that's a good spot for him. I think that if you look at the Van Gundys, they've always prioritized themselves on being the best that they can with the game of basketball, and I think that Jeff Van Gundy is going to be really good at his job. Good luck to him.
No, I think Stan Van Gundy's a better analyst now.
Yeah, I agree.
So now we'll talk some football here. I mean, this past week, Tom Brady was inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame, and he was a player I grew up watching during the Patriots dynasty era, and then when I met you, it was starting to come to an end with the Bill Belichick era for the Patriots. And, 6 Super Bowl titles, and I feel like we're all thankful for what he's done for the National Football League and for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I mean, one of the things I can say about Tom Brady that I'm grateful for is the fact that Eli Manning beat him twice in the Super Bowl. But all that being said, no, he's a great player. I mean, his story is the stuff of legend. A guy who gets drafted 199th overall in the 2000 draft, makes a name for himself, takes the spot from Drew Bledsoe as the starting quarterback, wins 6 Super Bowls, nearly has a perfect season, goes on to win a 7th Super Bowl with another team, and has almost every passing record in the book. It's the stuff of legend. I mean, you don't see this with any other quarterback. And I know that there are rumors that Brady might come out of retirement mid-season this year. I think those are farce. I think that he's comfortable where he is. And, congrats to him on an amazing career.
Oh, yeah. That was a very good ceremony there for Tom Brady. And then we got to talk about the current Patriots now with Gerard Mayo now leading them as the head coach. Drake May has really progressed well in the OTAs, and I feel like he is slowly but surely earning his spot to be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots.
And the fact that all these reports are coming out of how good Drake May is doing in training camp, I think is a positive for Patriot fans to see. Just because, Mac Jones, same story. When he first got to New England, he was doing well in training camp. He beat out Cam Newton for the starting job. Then Newton got released. And then Mac Jones took over. First year, things went well. And then after that, not as much. But Drake May, I've always seen a lot of potential in him. The kid's in good shape. He's got a bullet. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a smart decision maker. And he's got a decent cast around him. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, if the Patriots can win 7 or 8 games this year, maybe 9, I think they've done themselves justice this year.
Oh, yes. You're absolutely right about that. And then I think, I also think if you talk about this whole rookie class, a lot of people are saying, is Sam Darnold really the starter for the Minnesota Vikings? And I'm like, not really. But if they do start him, it's to have J.J. McCarthy learn the playbook. But I'm one of those guys that I think J.J. McCarthy is pro-ready. He's a pro-ready quarterback out of Michigan, and I think he's going to come into training camp to beat out Sam Darnold.
Well, I think the intention is to have J.J. McCarthy as a starter regardless. I mean, he has a phenomenal college record. Justin Jefferson wanted a quarterback that he knows he has chemistry with. That's why they brought in J.J. McCarthy after Kirk Cousins was let go. And I think that J.J. McCarthy will show in preseason why he deserves to be the guy. And I don't think Sam Darnold is going to be the long-term answer. I think he may be a bridge for about a week or two if they do indeed decide to have McCarthy sit back and learn the playbook for a little bit. But if you're a Viking fan, you hope that McCarthy gets to start right away just because you don't see any positives with Sam Darnold. Jet fans certainly didn't see positives with Sam Darnold. So if it's a 1 to 2 week bridge, that's fine. But that 1 to 2 week bridge could cost you a playoff spot if you're Minnesota because the NFC is really up for grabs with the exception of 2 or 3 teams.
Oh yeah, I think that right now Sam Darnold is a starter for the Vikings for now, but I think it's going to change.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because in my Madden league, I already am planning to start 5 rookie quarterbacks in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
In Williams, Daniels, May, McCarthy, and Nix.
Uh-huh.
So, anyways, we got to talk some Hard Knocks now. I mean, it starts with the offseason with the New York Giants. And you get to see the behind the scenes with Brian Dable, Daniel Jones, and Joe Shane. Are you excited to watch Hard Knocks offseason with the New York Giants?
That might be the only thing I look forward to for the Giants all season long. But the thing is, it's good that the Giants are actually getting some coverage through Hard Knocks because remember last year during the offseason, the Jets got Hard Knocks because of the Aaron Rodgers hype, and then they didn't get the regular season hype. That was the Dolphins who got that honor. So I think it's good the Giants are actually going to get some sort of exposure to the media with how Brian Dable runs the training camp, with how Joe Shane manages the team, how Eli Manning is an ambassador for the team in some way, shape, or form. I think this is going to be good for the Giants. But like I said, that's the only thing that fans can be excited for this season.
Well, for the Giants here, I mean, I know that I predicted them to be the worst team in the league this year. You think Brian Dable needs his own quarterback next season if Daniel Jones fails expectations?
Yes, I mean, this is Daniel Jones' last chance. If he does not perform up to the level that he's supposed to, if he does not turn back the clock to 2022, it's over. The Giants are going to let him go. They're going to have some of the team eat up that contract. They're probably going to trade him away, and then you just go off with Quinn Ewers or Shedeur Sanders as your starter for 2025. That's how this goes if Daniel Jones fails. Again.
And is Brian Dable one of the coaches on the hot seat?
Is he one of the coaches on the hot seat? Not this cycle. Unless the Giants go 2-15, then no. I think the Giants are going to be like a 3-4 football team. I don't think they're going to be great at all. I mean, it's good to see what Malik Neighbors can do this year, but if he's a failure because of the offensive system, then that's a problem. But I think that the Giants are going to be a 3-14, 4-13 team, but I don't think Brian Dable's on the hot seat. He's too good.
Now we got to talk about Trevor Lawrence. He got that contract extension in Jacksonville. You know, Duval County is going to be going crazy for the Jaguars this season.
Mm-hmm. And the contract, for those of you who don't know, it's 5 years, $275 million, close to $200 million guaranteed. You're talking $55 million in average annual value. So this is a this is a good contract for the Jaguars because the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence as a fully healthy starter last year started 8-3, and then Trevor Lawrence got hurt in a Monday night game against the Bengals, and they ended the season on a 1-5 stretch to end the year. This was all because Trevor was hurt, and they had to get another backup to come in. That was C.J. Beathard who backed him up, by the way. Ultimately, Jacksonville has their guy, and they really wanted to prioritize him. But I think what this also does, if you're another team who's looking to pay a quarterback, this puts teams like Miami on notice saying, hey, if they could pay our quarterback, so can we.
Yeah, I think Tua Tagovailoa gets a contract extension with the Miami Dolphins.
It's possible. I mean, I want to see Tua have one more good year, and then maybe that will initiate the Dolphins to say, you know what, let's lock him up.
I think the Dolphins will lock him up before the season starts. But now, and I think the Dolphins are committed to that, and I don't think the Dolphins will let go of Tua Tagovailoa.
I mean, like I said, the guy can play football. He's a good left arm thrower, but the problem is he's injury prone. But I think he rewrote the ship last year, so I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, that was a good sign for Tua Tagovailoa, and I think that the Miami Dolphins are. I think the Miami Dolphins are a really good team.
They are a good team. I mean, but you also got to realize what you're going to have going forward. Tyreek Hill's got a year or two left before he calls it a career. You lock Jalen Waddle for a long term. You have a good offensive line. You just got to make sure that the quarterback is consistent. And Tua's proven that when he's not injured, he can play.
Yes. I mean, with Tua, I think Tua can play here, and then I also think the AFC as a whole is going to be very, very tough.
It's going to be the best conference in all of football. Period. That's going to be like a no doubter because I mean the AFC, you're going to have at least 9 or 10 teams above 500, and only 7 of them can make it in the playoffs.
We also have to talk about another Hard Knocks, the Chicago Bears. Are you excited to see what Caleb Williams is on when it comes to his Hard Knocks debut?
That should be interesting. I think the fact that you're getting a rookie quarterback mic'd up and you're recording it through training camp, I think is interesting, especially because Caleb Williams is on a mission to rewrite the ship with Chicago, but I also want to see how his friendship with Roma Dunze develops, because those two are rookies coming in, and that's going to be the hot connection in Chicago for years to come.
And then we talk about AFC North hard knocks with the Ravens, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers. I'm more excited to see in this hard knocks Joe Burrow and then Lamar Jackson.
That's pretty much you said it all perfectly right there. The fact that they're having a 4-way hard knocks, I think that's going to be really interesting how they do it, especially during the division games. Like, that's going to be like stuff of high quality television right there when they get to the division games. So it's going to be interesting to see how this 4-way hard knocks works in season, because that was the best division in football last year. They all went above 500, and I think maybe the same can be said again.
It's the best division in football, the AFC North. I mean, talk about rivalries like Ravens and Steelers. That's still a great rivalry.
Oh no, it's one of the hardest rivalries to play in because of how physical it gets. And you have the Battle of Ohio with the Bengals and Browns. You have the Bengals who are finally coming up against the Steelers. They finally can beat them now. And then you get the Ravens and the Bengals, two really good teams. And then you also got the Browns and the Ravens. And if you know the story about that rivalry, then you'll understand why it's so intense, because of the whole move back in '95 when the Browns moved to Baltimore. Baltimore came into fruition in 1996, but then the Browns reestablished themselves in '99, 3 years later. But the rivalry has still been going strong ever since.
Yes, that is. And then on. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah, so you also think that if you look at the season coming up here, I mean, pretty soon you and I are going to be making our divisional picks. I think we should do that before training camp.
All right, when do you want to do this?
Probably late July, because that's when training camp starts. That way I can kind of get it. I already kind of know who I want to win each division and talk about who's going to win each award for the players.
I like that. That's a good time.
Because I think doing it at training camp will be good, and talk about who's going to go to the Super Bowl and who's going to win it and all that. And I also think there's another team that we forgot to talk about that might be a surprise this year is the Arizona Cardinals.
I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest surprises as well, just because Arizona they didn't win a lot of games. They were a 5-12 football team last year, but they were very competitive. The next step to being a competitive team is winning a few games that you're supposed to win from being a competitive team. And like I said, this team shocked the Eagles last year, so they have some momentum.
Yeah, with that being said, Matt, that's going to do it. You have a good day, man.
Take care.